I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past and present, and also thank you to Energy Consumers Australia for inviting me along to speak today. I'm going to talk a bit about the retail market, and I think it's fair to say that unfortunately it's a bit in the doldrums. It's not working for too many people in the community. We've heard a bit about the sentiment survey from the Energy Consumers Australia, but just recently the Consumer Action, together with the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, did some polling work as well, which found that only 4% of Victorians have a lot of trust in their electricity retailer to act in their interests. It's probably not a surprising finding given the public concern associated with energy prices, but I think it should be startling for us. That is, it really should prompt us to be really thinking about what we can do differently to make the retail market work for consumers. It's worth stepping back, I think, and thinking about the microeconomic theory that led to us being where we are. When competition was brought to the retail market and then price deregulation, the theory was that new and incumbent suppliers would compete to gain market share, be more responsive to their customers and push prices down. Consumer protections at that time were adopted. They were designed around information provision, financial difficulty and disconnection, as well as dispute resolution. These are all important protections, but there was probably less consideration to some of the preconditions for effective competition, a couple being simple and comprehensible information and fair and transparent products. The result, I think, has been a market in which consumers have to be highly engaged to get a good deal. We have a market where energy suppliers are competing over this engaged subset, but not delivering benefits to all consumers. JJ mentioned the Thwaites Report in Victoria, and it published some useful information about how retailers price. For example, the report emphasised that fixed charges were an increasing proportion of the bill, even though network fixed charges were reducing. The reviewers made the point that in other sectors, for example, petrol, consumers, that we just do not have those two separate tariffs, and that it's much easier for a consumer to work out what they're paying with a single price. The report also examined retailer margins, finding that average retail charge for most Victorian retailers is well above the estimated retail costs for retailers in other similar jurisdictions. And the reviewers concluded that this may be because the costs associated with competition are high in Victoria. For example, costs associated with marketing. The report also showed there's a real diversion in the final bills people are paying. They examined a group of customer bills and found a median savings rate of around 21%. That is, consumers were paying, on average, almost $300 per year more than the cheapest offer. The ACCC's preliminary report on the energy market last year noted this price dispersion as well, and they said it may reflect information asymmetry and search costs. That is, the burden is on the customer to make sure they are on the best deal, and it's complex for them to do that. I like to think of this problem in the following way. There are really two markets going on. The first is operating moderately well. It's the active market. These are the people that do switch, listen to the Prime Minister perhaps, and regularly engage. The second is the passive market, where people either have not switched or did once and reverted to a high price after 12 months. I'd venture to suggest that the passive market is actually bigger than the active, but hopefully the ACCC in its work can shine a light on that. Retailers are really adopting two different pricing strategies for each market, competing fiercely for active customers with attractive deals, and at the same time pushing up prices, often significantly for passive customers. I should say it's a competitive pressure that's driving this. It's not intentionally bad conduct by retailers, it's the nature of competition in its market. The Thwaites Report picked up on some of the issues our centre has been raising for some time that drive this, and they relate to poor product design. Products are essentially, I think, designed in a way that abuse those passive consumers. So I'll give a couple of examples. First, the use of evergreen market contracts with benefit periods. The benefits associated with the deal, for example, some level of discount, usually expire at the end of the benefit period, but the contract continues. This avoids the need to advise a customer of a contract end, and thus avoids triggering them to explore alternative retailers and contracts. Pleasingly, there has been some effort to deal with this through new market rules, but I'm not sure that they deal with the nub of the problem. That is, the products are still taking advantage of passive consumers. Second, there's the ability for prices to be changed at any time, including not long after signing up. Consumer Action, together with the Consumer Utilities and Advocacy Centre, proposed a rule change some years ago to deal with this issue, but our position was not accepted by the Australian Energy Market Commission. To make matters worse, people are not necessarily told about any price change until the next bill. Again, there are rule changes being proposed to deal with that, but more fundamental problems, I think, remain. These include my third product design concern, and that is the role of discounting. I won't go on about these, but 2 points. First, headline discounts are necessarily confusing because each retailer discounts from a different base rate. Second, these discounts are mostly for paying on time, so in fact, this is actually a late payment penalty hitting the most vulnerable. Consumer advocates often call out about the Telstra late payment fee of $15 and it being a higher cost than it costs to Telstra when you pay late. But discounts in this sector are actually hidden late payment penalties and can be up to $100 a bill or more. The Thwaites Review, I think, helpfully proposed some policy principles which guide any response. These include competition is a means to deliver that benefit to consumers, but it's not an end in itself. That the retail energy market should deliver for all customers, not just those who are capable, interested, and able to navigate its complexity. An effective market should reduce the costs customers pay. To achieve these sort of outcomes, we have to reset the incentives in the market. Suppliers need the incentive to make sure their customers are on the best deal and not to rely on a two-tier market to make their profits. This is why my centre is very supportive of the key recommendation from the Thwaites Review, the idea of a basic service offer. This offer, essentially a fair price guarantee, would be offered by all retailers, priced at an amount set by an independent regulator and stripped of unnecessary additions such as marketing costs. Some have decried this idea as the end to the market, but I'd like to contest that. In fact, a basic service offer has the ability to drive better competition. Suppliers will still be able to discount if they are more efficient than other businesses. Discounts will be clearer and fairer because there will be a standard rate from which offers are discounted from. So in a way, this reform is both interventionist and pro-competition. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to debate this sort of reform more fully in the panel and Q&A session, but just before I conclude, I want to deal with a couple of issues that have been raised about it. First, that this sort of reform would threaten the security of the energy supply, causing blackouts. I've heard that complaint in the media. It's been suggested that this cap would reduce investment incentives needed for our energy market to transition to become more clean. This sort of argument is scare tactics in my view. A basic service offer would of course have to incorporate and track wholesale costs. Should wholesale prices change, this would change the regulated offer, which would encourage investment in supply. The goal here is not to stop energy companies turning a profit. The goal is just to squeeze those excess profits and encourage greater efficiency. I also think a basic service offer could help address the destabilising political climate that has surrounded Australia's energy market. The basic service offer might help many households, the public, feel that there is a fair offer out there, that someone independent has got their back. I think this offer will make it more likely that suppliers are meeting community expectations, making reactive public policy less likely. Thank you.